Hey everybody, this video I'm going to be doing up a small Shoggoth, just doing some cleanup here. Not a lot to it. This is only a one-piece model, so there's no assembly required, and there's just some little bit of flash and then some gates on the bottom you got to clean up. Nothing too complicated. So now that it's cleaned up, I'm just going to do a primer coat, and I always prefer to use the surface primer from Vallejo. And since this is going to be a darker miniature, I'm going to do it in the dark Panzer gray. It's not black, but it's a really dark gray, and I find that it helps with filling in the shadows and some of the recessed areas. And when it's underneath the top coats, it really gives it a good dark undercoat on those parts. So now that it's dry, I'm just going to start with a dark green on the bottom. The overall look of this will be kind of a really dark green color. I mean, nice thing about the Shoggoth is they can, according to the lore, they can pretty much form into anything. They're kind of protoplasmic in their natural form, so really here any color goes. I'm just going with a green palette on this one to keep it nice and dark and a more muted color. So the bottom I did with a dark green, and I'm going to do kind of the top in a little lighter color. And it looks, when you first put it on, it might look a bit stark in contrast, but after you go through the process, they'll blend quite nicely together. Now here I'm just going to put it on to a handle to make it easier to maneuver around, so I don't actually have to handle the model as much. And for this, the top part, I'm just kind of viewing that as kind of a bony structure, so I'm going to give it a dark bone, kind of brown color as an undercoat, and then I'll do some highlighting with a lighter color. So I'm just going to airbrush that on. I find doing the airbrushing, at least for the base coats, gives a good blend between the colors. And again, I'm just going to put some highlights on, and I'm using the new Artist Opus brushes I just got from a Kickstarter. They just showed up the other day, so I figured I'd give them a try. And overall, I thought they worked quite well. I mean, I've used the Series 7 Kolinsky Sable for a long time, and I found these to be a very good substitute for those. Here I'm just putting this color like on the top. It's like the surface. I'm trying to keep it out of any of the recesses. And for this next piece, I'm just going to do a mix of the two colors, and this will be kind of a transition between the really bright piece and then the little darker bone color into the green. And again, this will all come together a lot more once you go through some of the weathering on it. Here I'm just going to go ahead and glue it to its base. As you probably saw in the previous segment there, it started to slip off the handle because there wasn't enough surface area for that to grab onto the double-sided tape. So just put it on the base, and then it'll stick to the tape much better that way. Right, now I'm going to use the Citadel Nuln Oil. This is kind of one of my go-tos for giving it a dark wash, and this will get into all those recesses and just do a good job of adding some more contrast and shadow. And this will also, because you put it on there, this will help blend all of the two separate greens, and then where the kind of the bony colors and then the green start to mix. So this will help bring all of that together. One of the things you'll probably notice in my videos is I use a kind of a wide range of paints. I have a lot of the different paint lines, and there's just certain colors I like from each of the lines. So I'm not really a slave to any particular brand. Now here I'm just going to, now that I've darkened up those areas, I'm going to do a dry brush with a pale green, again to kind of bring out those edges a little more and give a little more definition. And I'm not real worried about if I'm getting it on any of the little spheres or eyes there, because those are all going to be painted in a later step. So you don't have to be overly careful on this. Now here I'm going to start painting the eyes, and it's really, you know, you can do anything you want on these because you got to figure these Shoggoth, again, they can form into any creature, so you know you don't have to stick with human looking eyes. You can have animal looking eyes, you can have, you know, solid colors, you can do whatever, you know, you want. And so what I'm doing here is I picked out 4 of the larger eyes, and I'm going to do kind of a I'm trying to think of the term, the kind of like they're lit from within. OSL, I think, is what I was looking for. So I'm going to do 4 of the eyes like that. I mean, you could do them all the same way, but that, you know, that for the purpose of the video, that would be a lot of work just to do this. So I'm just going to pick out 4 of the larger eyes, and then do 2 different types of lighting on it. One's going to be kind of an orange color, and the other's going to be in a blue and a white. Now here, the reason I'm showing the silly putty is there's a lot of different ways you can mask your miniatures when you're going to do some airbrushing. You can use tapes, there's other things. I found silly putty works quite well for small areas. It's easy to put on, easy to come off, it doesn't pull the paint up. I'm not even sure where I picked that up, but for a long time, you know, I'll use that for these areas. And then when I start on the eyes, like here, I'm going to start with the orange, and this will be kind of like an orange light coming out of this eye. So I'm just going to spray around it to kind of give that source light effect. And then the other 2 eyes, I'm going to do more of a kind of an arcane blue type of effect to it. Same principle, just a different color. You can do these any color. You could do them yellow, you could do them green, anything you want. These are just the colors I decided on. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clean up around the edge, just put in a good band of kind of the orange color. Fill in around the edges of the eye. And now I'm going to do the light blue. And even though I'm like being pretty careful about how I'm applying this, it's not the end of the world if it gets on the eye. You can always just put some black, another layer of black paint over the top of it. Right, now I'm going to start adding some other colors to the orange eyes, just to add some different color. And again, I'm putting this kind of between that orange line I just put on there and then the black. We'll add some brightness, or at least the illusion of some brightness coming from the edges of the eye. And now on the blue, I'm going to use white as the color between the blue band and then the black of the eye. And again, this just gives it a little more brightness, kind of the illusion that that's where the glow is coming from. Got a little paint on one of the other eyes there, but again, I'll be painting over that in a future step, so it's not the end of the world. So now on the eyes, I'm going to give it kind of the effect of, like, you know, in a human you'd have bloodshot eyes, but these will be different. I'll be adding some different colors to kind of create the effect of the veins in the eyeball. And on each one, I'll use 2 or 3 different colors just to give it some differences and some variety. I'm going to go through the same steps on the blue eyes using blue and white for the veins. As you'll notice, I'm not going all the way up to the center of the eye. I'm kind of leaving a circle in the middle open, and that's just kind of look like the iris. And again, there's no right or wrong way to do these. Again, you know, for a creature that can become anything, look like anything, there's really it's up to you, you know, how you want it to look. So it could be something straightforward like this, or you can go crazy and have every single eye look different. If you're really good at freehand, you could have them looking like you know, different animals or birds or reptiles. Those would be a lot of cool effects. It'd be time consuming, but it would make for a really cool looking miniature. Now for the rest of the eyes, I'm just going to paint them all a solid black. Again, you could do eyeballs on all of them. You could make them all the same, different, you know, whatever you want to do. But for the purpose of the video and time, the rest of these I'm just going to leave as a straight black. Here I'm just going to give it a the whole model satin varnish coat. This will give it a little bit of a wet look, not overly, but it'll give it a little bit of a slimy kind of wet look and also protect the paint that's already on there. And then the gloss varnish I'm going to put on the eyeballs. This will give them a shine, so it kind of replicates a wet eyeball. I'm going to give it that kind of glistening gleam that you'd expect to see from something wet. And I put it on fairly heavy on some of these just so it has a really good wet look to it. Probably should have done multiple light coats, but seemed to come out okay. And sometimes on these glosses, if you put them on too heavy, they can come out a bit cloudy, but these all seem to come out pretty good. And then there's the finished miniature. Again, it's no real assembly to speak of, and pretty straightforward. And again, being the Shoggoth, it's an open palette on what you want it to look like. There is no right, wrong way to paint it. You can have it purple and pink if you want. Again, these are creatures that can, you know, become and look like just about anything. So, you know, do it however you want, and have fun doing it. And I hope this video was useful, or at least somewhat educational, and I appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.